This is the Betfred Boxing Show with myself, Don McGuinness and Anthony Crolla. Now, Anthony, we start where we always start, a quick look back at the weekend that we just witnessed. But before we do that, we are going to be hearing from Eddie Hearn about the latest of this crazy heavyweight situation. We're also going to be crossing into the Usyk camp, which is very interesting, nice twist in the tail maybe there. We're going to be previewing Josh Taylor and that incredible fight against Ramirez that we're all looking forward to. And hearing from Dennis Hobson all about this fight zone and the new future, we think, potentially, certainly of the smaller promoters are all coming together in this an exciting new way, regular Friday fight nights. But firstly, we will tackle the weekend events, and there were some standout performances. It was Joshua Buatsi headlining, of course, but Lerone Richards, arguably, in terms of what he was up to after the fight, maybe stole the show, but Dalton Smith was brilliant, and again, Jason Cunningham, surely he's got to get special praise.
Yeah, the start of the show for me was, we mentioned Lerone Richards with the 1 a penny, 2 a penny. That
was beautiful, Anthony. That was
Thank
lovely.
you. Bit of a vocalist. But no, he boxed very nice. But the start of the show, without a doubt, was Jason Cunningham. Gamal Yafai, very highly respected amateur, and hardly put a foot wrong as a pro. But Jason Cunningham, very few people give him a chance outside of his camp. Ray Darley's done a fantastic job of him, Steffi Bull as well. That town of Doncaster absolutely flying. Like, you could see their excitement and just what it meant to them after it. But he has the tattoo on his chest, the underdog that never lost hope. And there's so many fighters that would have walked away from boxing with Jason Cunningham. He'd won a Commonwealth title, but he was almost like a nearly man. I even remember as an amateur getting to a few ABA finals. But for him to box the way he did and to be now European champion, we all know what a European title can lead to as well, a defence or two of that, or even a voluntary one of the champions picture. It's going to make all that worth it, and that was his night, and it's well deserved.
Dalton Smith was excellent.
I say about Dalton, I think I was raving on about him, wasn't I, the week before? I think a lot of him, and I think he is, if not the best prospects in the UK, one of the very best. I thought he was brilliant against a good opponent in Lee Appleyard. He's very spiteful, very controlled performance, and I just look forward to watching more and more of him, and I think there's a lot of people who've jumped on the Dalton Smith hype dream now.
Yeah, and many will have jumped on the Lerone Richards train, as you have beautifully vocalised.
Yep,
but his performance in the ring as well wasn't bad, was it?
Nah,
He's a highly skilled operator, this
It was very good. It was, some will say one for the purists that time, but he's got lovely skills. I've knew Lerone for a while. I remember him coming years back to the gym in Bolton, sparring Callum Smith in his preparation for what was then going to be Jürgen Bremer. And I've always kept an eye on him ever since. Lovely skills, southpaw, hard to hit. And he mentioned after it, people say I don't hit hard enough. He says, well, let people try and walk through me. I think there's a lot to like about Lerone Richards. Obviously, he's in the division there where you've got Canelo, where he's got nearly all the belts. So it's going to be tough for a world title, but I think that's not a bad thing. I think a few more learning fights at that level to bridge the gap. I don't mean bridge the gap of Canelo, but that world class. And exciting times for Lerone Richards.
When you mentioned learning fights, are we still talking learning fights with Josh Buatsi? He got the job done against Dos Santos, but now, again, with the light heavyweight division in the UK, I mean, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it, to see any of them? Lyndon, Anthony Yard, Callum Johnson, Ophi Burton. I mean, there's some great talent.
Any one of those 4 or 5 boxing each other would be fantastic. It's a great division domestically, and it's when I say domestically, a lot of them are a fringe world title, because I know Lyndon's got a very high ranking with the WBO. I think he's number 1 actually, so we'll be waiting for that mandatory. I know CJ, Callum Johnson, he's up there. So when I say domestic showdowns, but they could be, hopefully we're going to see a domestic showdown between 2 of the 4 or 5 for a world title. It's great to see Buatsi back out. A big fan of Joshua Buatsi. And there's a few nice touches, after it with his opponent, who was obviously very upset. But all in all, Dos Santos, with the greatest respect, he didn't belong in there, Joshua Buatsi. It was there was levels and levels back, and you could see that coming. It was a brutal knockout, but we look now forward to watching the improvement under Virgil Hunter.
Now, one thing that did get a little bit more complicated this weekend, it was on the big heavyweight fighter finally that we've been talking about for about 14 years, I think. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. It was all steam ahead. August the 14th, Saudi Arabia, and then this arbitration. Now Wilder wants to go again against Fury apparently, and it's all got very messy, hasn't it?
It has, and being honest, I don't think you needed a crystal ball to see this was going to happen. Deontay Wilder is obviously going to stand strong, and thinking the amount of money that's involved in that fight, I'm going to hold out for an absolute fortune. Probably can't blame you if you're handling him. You know, you tell him to do those things. I mean, no one wants to see Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3. I don't think anyone does. They all want to see that fight, but it's just a worry because it always seems like there's always a little bit of a hurdle and it overcomes and it's met with another one. And I know the kind of a fight of this magnitude will present them, but for me, the middle of August looks extremely unlikely now. Yeah. We'll see.
Well, our friends at Matchroom Media did have a word with the main man himself from Matchroom, Mr. Eddie Hearn.
Well, I just got home, nice bit of dinner, put the kids to bed, just settled down nice, you know, just chilled Monday night, and then the phone started blowing up. Have you heard this? Have you heard this? And sometimes you hear speculation. Then Bob Arum calls me, then, you know, all hell breaks loose, and, you know, wanted obviously to speak to them, see the situation, and see firstly what could be done, what was real, what wasn't real, where we stand. And yeah, it was a shock to the system. You know, this negotiation's been going on for 3 or 4 months now, and you know, we were always assured that this wouldn't be a problem. It was a very strange decision from the arbitrator, to say the least. But that's their business, that's their responsibility, and we can have to see now where they go with it.
What conversations have taken place with Team Fury since the news broke?
Just really with Bob Arum last night. You know, I think he was in complete and utter shock. I mean, I've never really heard him speechless, but he's been very bullish throughout this whole process that, you know, I know it's their business and we don't know too much about the contracts in the case, but this wouldn't be a problem. This wouldn't stand in the way of an Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight, and that's quite frustrating because, like I said, we've been working tirelessly to get this over the line. So he was, you know, almost shell-shocked, I think, and then once he'd calmed down and done what he had to do, I think the move then was to speak to the other side and see if there's a resolution. Again, we can't control that, we can't be involved with that process, but as far as I understand it, Tyson Fury wants to fight Anthony Joshua. We have a deal to do so, August the 14th in Saudi Arabia. Spoke to our partners in Saudi Arabia, they weren't best pleased either, and I think the conversations are ongoing, but you know, from our point of view, we have to just get our side in order, make sure we have our own plans, and hopefully they can resolve the issue and we can move forward with the August 14th fight. But over to them. The only fight that we had our mind on was Tyson Fury, and we hope that that fight can still take place on August 14th. The game changed last night where we have to have a plan B in place, and probably a plan C as well, and we have a couple of different options. Of course, the one that springs to mind immediately is the WBO mandatory of Oleksandr Usyk. You know, they've been quite patient, and I think really we're in a situation now where if Team Fury don't get themselves together, get their act together by the end of this week, we will have no option but to look for an alternative fight. AJ wants to fight this summer. Oleksandr Usyk is the mandatory. We have 2 or 3 other options as well, but it would be in an ideal world if the right deal could be done to maintain those belts and to keep the Fury fight alive for probably December, but for the undisputed as well. So I had a very good conversation this morning with Alex Krassyuk. You know, he's a partner of ours. We've worked very well on Oleksandr Usyk. And I just sort of said to him, I was just very honest. You know, I said, look, Team Fury are trying to resolve the issue. If they don't, there's a very good chance we could be fighting you. So if we're all sensible, let's move forward. Let's try and look at the options to get that locked in. Again, you know, we're in a situation where we just don't know how likely it is to get a full venue for August, you know, in the UK. That was one of the reasons that it was ruled out for the Fury fight, is we couldn't get the confirmation from Wembley and other venues that there would be allowed full capacity. But we moved forward with that, and you know, we continue those talks with Alex Krassyuk this week. And like I said, Plan B and Plan C still now comes into effect, but we hope Plan A is, you know, evolves and can come into fruition.
So Plan A would be Fury Joshua still happening, but he talks about Plan B there. It's very interesting, obviously, Alexander Usyk, who has made no secret of the fact that he wants to fight Joshua, and Talking of another Josh, producer Josh caught up with Alex Krassyuk to find out exactly what was going on from their point of view.
What is the latest from your side of things?
So at this stage, we have the court decision, the arbitration, that Fury has to fight Wilder. And I read in the media that Wilder expects 20 million euro compensation, the step aside, which I think is not really reasonable, even half of it. So, and before in the morning, I read that Bob Arum saying that there's no way he sees paying any money to Wilder. It's much better to fight him straight away. That leads us to another fight, which is mandatory for AJ Usyk, Alexander Usyk, who's been already almost 2 years in the mandatory position, and now might have a chance to fight the champion.
And in terms of Usyk, who have you been preparing to fight up until now? Have you always had Anthony Joshua in the back of your minds, or has there been a fight that you guys have been working towards before this happened?
If you take a thorough look back probably to January, we had first negotiations for the interim when it first occurred. But since that time, we never had any serious discussions about fighting Joe Joyce. No serious discussions, and we were waiting for a chance to get in with AJ. We had the feeling, experience shows that anything might happen in boxing, and probably 2 or 3 days before, I spoke to Eddie, and he said that the deal is done on his side, and no more obstacles from Saudi. Nothing can from his side. Nothing can stop the fight from being made. And now this morning I woke up. First thing I saw several messages on my phone stating that something went wrong with the big fight. So another hour I received a text from Eddie that we need to talk, which is true, and we did talk and discuss the possibility to make the mandatory fight.
And in terms of that mandatory fight, what percentage do you think we're likely to see that compared to Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury?
According to my knowledge, and my knowledge from different sources, and my understanding of how things are going now, it's much more likely to see AJ versus Usyk in probably next couple of months, maybe by the end of summer, than to see Fury fighting AJ at the same period of time.
And with Usyk, how is he doing? Seeing him on social media, and he seems in really good shape. So no matter what happens, or no matter who his next opponent is, he's looking good.
I gave him a call this morning, and he didn't pick up, so I left a message. I said, Alex, are you ready to face Anthony Joshua? Then he called me back in half an hour saying, I am on La Manche now. Which side, which turn should I make now? Left or right?
Well, there's the Usyk camp, Alex Krassyuk there again. They could be the beneficiaries of all this mess. But
yes.
Again, I mean, what's the ideal scenario? I mean, I know the obvious is Fury, Joshua, but say that's all too complicated now with this arbitration. What do you want to see? What's the second best plan?
For me, without a doubt, is Joshua Usyk. That's the fight I'd want to see after that. Listen, ideal scenario, we'll get to see the fight that everyone wants to see in boxing. But I think if Anthony Joshua isn't to fight Tyson Fury, I think the next best opponent would be Alexander Usyk. And
Fury Wilder,
fight.
Is that...
Yeah, Fury Wilder 3. No one wants to see it. They really don't. And I know Wilder, I see it as teamed up now with Malik Scott, and whether he's going to make improvements. And if he does, then you've got to, if he can recapture anything, if it's not damaged him too much, he's a major player still in the heavyweight division, is Wilder. But no one really wants to see that fight whatsoever again. But Usyk, they're banging the door down. They want that fight with Joshua. They believe it's a fight they win, and they win well. There's some great fights to be made. It's just that everyone's been so caught up in the main fight being made, the fight everyone wants to see. But in the heavyweight division, there's some great fights to be made still.
What you hope doesn't happen is that the likes of Joe Joyce somehow get pushed further down the line because of his name mentioned there. But again, he's done everything right, hasn't he? And his demolition of Dubois put him in a position where you think, right, now Joyce should get his absolute shot here very soon. And again, all this complication and all this messing around just makes life hard, doesn't it?
Of course it does. So he might be unlucky in all of this. And also, and I know we say it time and time again, Dillian White must be thinking, when am I? You know, almost to the point of, am I just giving up on getting the crack at the title?
A couple of pay-per-views have probably eased his worries,
I think they have eased it a little bit. You could be right there, but it is, I think, the whole heavyweight division sort of it's stalled until we see what happens between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. But being realistic, at the minute, the news that, listen, things change daily, but as we stand at the minute, August looks unlikely, and I think the way sort of Eddie and others are talking is it's probably unlikely they will fight each other next.
As producer Gav said, though, we don't want a Pacquiao-Mayweather situation, do we?
Mate, we don't want
these
to be
two fight
seeing them
when
in
they're
a few
53
years.
or whatever.
No, it's got to happen and happen very soon because, listen, Anthony Joshua and Usyk, that's no gimme. I know, personally, I know Russ Abner who's in the Usyk camp. That's a fight they fancied for a long time.
Yeah. Well, moving on, a fight that we know is going to happen, but any very late mishap, is Josh Taylor against Oleksandr Ramirez, which is fantastic. So let's forget all the heavyweight nonsense for a minute and all that's been going on, because this is a unification. It's all the belts. It's the Ring Magazine belt. It's everything. Josh Taylor can become Scotland's #1, right up there with Ken Buchanan if he pulls this off. I mean, it can't be underestimated what a big night this is for Taylor and for British boxing. Scottish boxing particularly, I should say.
Yeah, he's a very proud Scotsman, and I've been a Josh Taylor fan for years. I think I believe you mentioned it. I remember seeing him in the wild card years ago, just 2012, and I remember seeing how he dealt with an American lad who was giving a lot of people trouble in there. He was still amateur, and I thought, I'm going to keep an eye on him. He was fantastic, and the quality of opposition. I saw a ridiculous fact the other day, like Smith within his last 5 fights, it's the combined records, 100 and odd wins and just a few losses. It's something crazy, like you say. They've both got a common opponent in Victor Postol, who's a fantastic fighter. This is seen as many, some might argue Regis Progress, who Josh beat in the final, but this is seen in a lot of people's eyes as 1 and 2 in the division. It's a great fight. It's not getting the coverage that it deserves, but I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, and the whole of Scotland, and I hope all the UK are behind Josh on Saturday night.
Ramirez is an interesting character as well, and again, he's from the Central Valley in California, where they grow all the fruit. His story about his parents and all the immigrant workers and having no water, and he's been campaigning for them. He's been very political and very driven, and a very bright fellow who's been doing so much for his community. His story's brilliant.
Great story.
So if the two great lads going in there, that always adds a little bit to it. There's none of the trash that goes with it.
No,
it's
I
just
think
two
there's that mutual
operators.
respect, like, you know, we'll be respectful, but once that bell goes, they're both standing in the way of each other's greatness, aren't they? And that'll produce a great fight. Ramirez and Ryan works alongside the Garcia camp. Got a fantastic camp. I can't wait for it. I believe, I mentioned earlier, Regis Progress are rated so highly. I argue, you know, that might have been 1 and 2. I just believe Josh has the edge in a few little sort of departments, and I think that's going to be the difference. And I fancy Josh on points in a great fight, but to pull away in that second half of that fight, and Josh becomes, he already is, a great among Scottish boxing, but one of the very best we've seen. And listen, he becomes the star that he deserves.
Well, let's hear from the man himself, who's been speaking with our friends at Boxing Social.
Are you ready for a war?
That makes sense.
I've got the war paint on, the war paint's ready to go. And I'll stand in me, and I'm right in the middle. And he'll be flat on his back.
Do you think it's one thing that maybe people underestimate about yourself is your inside fighting ability?
Everybody always underestimates me. They always underestimate my punching power, my boxing, my movement, my everything. There's always a wee bit of something, a wee bit of doubt that makes me the underdog for some reason. But once they get in that ring and find out, then the performances speak for themselves, and I plan on doing that on Saturday as well.
With Jose, what is he coming into? What is he bringing into this fight, which you may not have previously had to come up against?
I don't think he's got anything that I've not seen before. I really don't think he's got anything that I haven't seen before. He's, I believe he's one-dimensional, albeit he's very good at what he does. He's a unified world champion. He's got 2 belts, but he does the same thing every fight. Come forward, put the pressure on, trying to break his opponent down, work the body, work the head, push the pace, and that's about all he does, you know. And a lot of his opponents haven't been able to do it, but 2 of them have, and twice he's been beaten and been fortunate to get the decision. Very fortunate to get the decision. So he's easily hittable. I know that, and I'm going to hit him with great punches on it along.
Well, a very confident Josh Taylor, as you would imagine, as he should
always,
be.
Always is.
He's always been, as you say, he's been in with the great operators like Prograde. But do you see it the way he sees it, in terms of he's seen it all before? He's seen the aggression, he's seen everything that Ramirez brings?
A little bit, like I say, and I think Josh says it there where he says he's one-dimensional, but he's very good at it. I think it'd be a little bit harsh to call Jose Ramirez one-dimensional. But I do believe he's going to keep coming, look to put the pressure on Josh, head, body, head, mixing up. But I just see, we might see the boxing skills of Josh take over, and that's what I think, you know, punches in bunches. Maybe a little bit Calzaghe-like, and I just think he pulls away on the cards. But I think it's a great fight to watch.
So you think Taylor points?
Taylor points, I'm pretty confident with that, yeah.
Okay, well now moving on to a new development in boxing. Fight Zone, which is coming to apps this Friday. It's live now, Fight Zone, and what you can get is Friday fight nights every week now. So lots of promoters coming together to provide work opportunities for fighters to get shows on every Friday, and everybody can watch and join in. You're involved yourself, Anthony?
I am, yes. I'm there this week with one of my own fighters, James Moorcroft, who's fighting on the undercard. And I do, you just mentioned then, I think it's a fantastic thing for fighters who are beyond the small hall show, and after the pandemic, for there to be 14 weeks back to back, you know, a show every single Friday. And I would try and urge every boxing fan to try and get behind this app. It's and I'm not saying you're not one if you don't, but I just think for £5 a month,
well, every boxing fan surely is going to be looking at this.
That's what I think. Every week there's a show. You're paying just over £1 for the show, and hopefully we're going to unearth a few gems on it. I really do believe it. We were talking and got onto it recently, like how Clint and Wood started on the small. A lot of fighters started on the small hall, worked their way through, but hopefully we can.
So did you?
Yeah, in a way I did.
In a way? Well, actually, you didn't, did you? Start in the arena.
I didn't start at the arena. I was trying to be off.
You did box at small
hall. No, but I
down
started a few small hall. Yeah, of course I did. And it's great at the back. And obviously up and down the country you see some fantastic fights on those. What we wouldn't see on the television show. This is giving a platform for them, and I just think, if boxing fans can get behind it, please try. Please do your best to get behind it. It's not like a play or a beg, you know, to get behind it, but there'll be some great action, and for £5 a month, you'll get your money's worth for sure.
And there's some great fights coming up on the schedule every Friday on Fight Zone. A little earlier, myself and Anthony, we caught up with one of the main men behind all of this, Sheffield promoter, the very experienced Mr. Dennis Hobson. Fight Zone, which is this new idea, you know, you were behind it, but you're working with other promoters, and you know, it's something very, very new and quite special. I know how excited you are about it.
Yeah, you know, I've known you both a long time, but obviously I reached out for you, Dom, to try and get you involved with us, and we've been doing 1 or 2 pilot shows, and how it all unfolded and evolved was we were in for buying Box Nation. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story. We were in for buying Box Nation, and it had gone into, obviously, I don't know if they got some arrangement financially or tax-wise with an administrator. But anyway, we got a nod that it was going to be for sale. So we'd gone backwards and forwards 2 or 3 times. I got my partners with me, and we were up for buying it. And we got told we'd got a bid, which were going to be the highest bid, and it was going to be bought debt-free. There was still a certain amount of subscriptions on Box Nation of about 17,000, and we thought, well, our aim is to create an OTT channel that is similar to DAZN. And I know DAZN are top end, but we were thinking that there's an hole in the market, you know, for doing kids from fledgling, from zero, right up hopefully to into the world titles. You know, kids who's not been on the Olympic team or GB squad, who sometimes don't get any exposure until they have to prove themselves and sometimes fight away from home and get to 10 or 15 and 0 before, you know, BT or Sky or anybody looks at them. So we thought, well, there's an hole in the market, you know, for the small hall promoters. And, you know, it's not a great terminology, I don't think, small hall promoters, because I think there's, me included, obviously, there's a lot of promoters out there who are capable of operating on a world stage. And but yeah, you know, I get where the terminology comes from. So some of these kids who turn pro, and sometimes they end up having to subsidize their careers through getting a job, through having a job, and having the exposure that we're going to give them gives us more opportunities sponsorship wise, which sometimes they can push the career on further through being a full-time pro and having sponsorship where they haven't got to worry about putting food on the table for the family and stuff like that, because they gain exposure, and so it's a lot more attractive for a sponsor.
Yes, and you're going all around the UK, aren't you, Dennis?
Yeah, with Sam Kinnock, I had a word with Ian Wilson the other day. We're putting some smashing fights up in Scotland, and there's one or two good kids up there. And sometimes, like I'm going back to the
opportunity,
there's opportunities for them, and sometimes they get overlooked, and they think, oh, I've got to go down south to progress my career. There's not enough happening up here. I haven't got enough exposure. Well, this is what we want to give them. And sometimes, when I was young, you had to go down to London all the time. Well, you know, the BBC, a lot of the BBC is based in Manchester now.
Yeah, we're here now.
So that's what I'm saying. So the world's a smaller place, and obviously England's a smaller, the UK is a smaller place. So, you know, Mo Pryor, you've got Carl Greaves, you've got Steve Woods, you've got Kevin, and in Manchester, and I'm just trying to think of all the other promoters that we're working with. But it's not just about, just because I'm involved in this TV channel, it's not all about me and Fight Academy. It's about doing deals with other promoters and letting them have a schedule, and then let's grow the kids and let them grow the kids. And then if they need some subsidy as they get to a certain level, then we all sit around the table. And it's not just about, oh, it's Dennis Hobson show, it's the Frank Warren show, it's the Eddie Hearn show. No, it's about them promoters who's brought them fledglings on. Why not carry on taking them as far as they can take them? And so to answer your question, going round the roundabouts, we want to go from zero right to the top, like I did with Clinton Wood.
Right to the peak. Brilliant.
So how do people get involved then, Dennis? What do you want them to do? I mean, again, a message to all boxing fans out there. You've got to subscribe to this. So what do they do? Where do they find Fight Zone?
Well, Fight Zone is on the internet. It's on your app, you know, on your app store, on your phone. So you can just put Fight Zone and just fightzone.tv or sorry .uk, and it'll just send you all the way to being able to link in and pay. It's $4.99 a month, which is just over £1. But I'll put it bluntly, we're having a go at this. I've been in the game a long time. This is a chance for everybody, every kid to get exposure, but it won't work unless they subscribe. It's simple. But it's not me trying to sell you double glazed windows, which are a bit shabby here. I'm selling you something that we all love, that we're all interested in, and it can take us on a journey from zero right to the top. But we need people to subscribe, and it's a benefit. All the kids who's taking the debut, or the 5-0, or the 6-5, or whatever, they can watch the Souls on playback, and they can see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. They get a bit of exposure, and they walk down the street, the local street, and all of a sudden they're known locally, because people are stopping them and shaking their hand because there is somebody all of a sudden. Because, as you know, it takes a lot of bottle to get in the ring anyway. So let's just appreciate that. And if a kid's not even got a winning record, he's still playing a part in our great sport.
Well, there we have it. Dennis, you can see how excited he is. I mean, he's been there and done it, as he says. He's had the big Vegas nights, but I think he's more enthused by this than just about anything.
And fair play to have those nights, like you say, to be there for some of Ricky's huge nights and to be so excited about this. It is exciting. And I think, like I mentioned earlier in the interview, and he said, how good would it be to get another, Quentin Woods, Jamie McDonald, a world champion from this? And there's every possibility of that happening.
Yeah, and of course, Betfred part of that journey as well. Now, you're going to be in Sheffield, as you mentioned. James is fighting this Friday. Yes. So what else is going on with you?
What else is going on? So, another bubble for a few days. I'm looking forward to being out as a coach for the first time. The first fight with James, we was meant to be in a title fight, but that fell through. But thankfully, he's still on the card, which is very important for him. And I'm just looking forward to being around boxing again. I know it was a few weeks back, but boxing's back now every Friday, and then the shows that are coming, the big shows, I'm looking forward to the big fight in the gym myself, and then I'm in Bolton as well. There's, like I mentioned last week, there's a few fighters in world title eliminators and British title eliminators coming up. So exciting times.
And Natasha Jonas back in the gym.
She is. She's back, and she's wanting anyone between 130 and 140. She just wants that world title, which I think there's very few people who disagree with what she deserves. Whoever it may be, but she's back in the gym. I think she enjoyed herself for a week or two, but she's back.
So she's not in any way feels that she's reached the top of the mountain, because with reflection, she'd be forgiven for thinking.
Of course she would.
I had the shot, Katie, just nearly got there.
Come
didn't
so
quite work
close
out.
to doing it.
But to have the enthusiasm to keep going.
Yeah, she's back. She's determined. I won't be giving up till I've got that world title. And like I said, she just fell short against one of the best fighters in a lot of people's, the best fighter in the women's game. And then obviously the fight with Terry. So she's coming off her two best performances back to back at the age of 36. She won't mind me saying. So I think it's like, why should I retire in the form of my career?
Yeah. Well, you see it close to hand. You were saying that before the fight, weren't you?
Yeah, she's getting better.
Fabulous stuff, right? Well, we look forward to seeing you in Sheffield, Anthony. And of course, it's all about Josh Taylor this weekend.
It is. Hopefully he can do it.
Can he fly the flag for Scotland? Well, there it is. Thank you very much indeed for watching the Betfred Boxing Show.